Okay, let's dive right into this fascinating explainer. Today, we're covering Richard Russell's recent analysis of a massive debate happening right now at the very edges of theoretical biology. So on one side, we have Michael Levin's theory of Platonic biology. This is the idea that nature's complex forms are actually downloaded from a realm totally outside physical space. And on the exact opposite side, we have the principle of physical constraint, the idea that the physical laws of our universe are entirely sufficient to explain all of these biological mysteries. We're going to unpack exactly what this debate means and why it literally changes how we view the building blocks of life itself.
Section 1. Universal Patterns in Nature. Let's start with a really compelling visual mystery.
We are dropping straight into a fundamental question here. Have you ever wondered why totally unrelated parts of nature share the exact same branching patterns? Seriously, if you've ever looked at a satellite photo of a river delta and thought, wow, that looks exactly like the veins in a leaf, well, you've stumbled right onto the mystery we're exploring today. It's absolutely wild when you look at the undeniable similarities across completely different physical materials. I mean, from the bronchial trees in our lungs to sprawling river networks to jagged coastlines, neural dendrites, and even sudden flashes of lightning. They all share this self-similarity across scales. It's what we call a fractal pattern. Basically, it's the same recursive rule applied over and over again. But the real question is, how does nature know to use the exact same design for a lightning bolt as it does for your lungs?
Section 2. The Platonic Biology Hypothesis. Let's look at one proposed answer to this riddle.
So Levin argues that these mathematical universals, these fractals, actually come from outside the physical world entirely. He proposes a Platonic space, and honestly, it's an undeniably alluring hypothesis. It's the idea that physical bodies, whether we're talking about growing embryos, artificial xenobots, or even AI language models, basically act as pointers or interfaces. They tap into this non-physical realm, and the patterns ingress or project themselves right into physical reality. It's a beautiful thought, right? It suggests this hidden, transcendent order to the entire universe.
Section 3. The Power of Physical Constraint. But what if we don't need a transcendent realm at all?
A perfect example of the counterargument is the coast of Brittany. Fun fact, Mandelbrot, the actual father of fractal geometry, made his founding observation right here. If you zoom in, there's incredible self-similarity from a 100-kilometer satellite view all the way down to a tiny 10-centimeter rock you could hold in your hand. But Preschel argues this jagged outline isn't downloaded from some Platonic realm, it's just carved by millennia of physical erosion. The Atlantic Ocean has been crashing against rocks of varying hardness over millions of years. And because the physics of wave action operates under the exact same physical laws no matter the scale, it produces self-similarity as a totally inevitable consequence. The physical process creates the math doesn't create the coast.
And this point brilliantly illustrates itself with one of nature's most famous geometric wonders, the honeycomb. I mean, do bees hold a master's degree in geometry? Are they downloading blueprints from a Platonic realm so they know a hexagon is the absolute most efficient shape? No way. Bees simply deposit wax as cylinders. Then they apply body heat, which softens the wax. After that, adjacent bees and the surrounding cells just exert pressure. The purely physical fact that hexagons are the unique mathematical solution to packing equal areas with minimum perimeter, well, that does all the rest of the work. Physics computes while the bee just deposits.
So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that universality is the signature of deep physical constraint. When a fern frond grows under gravity, when water erodes soil, when airflow needs to be minimized in a lung, or when a lightning bolt is just desperately seeking the path of least resistance, they are all hitting the exact same physical walls. They arrive at the same pattern, not because they share some transcendent template, but because they share a strict physical imperative. As pressure reminds us, the map is not the territory. Mathematics perfectly describes these constraints, sure, but it doesn't cause them.
We can even see this physical constraint playing out in human language, which perfectly proves that efficiency and anatomical limits dictate patterns, not mysterious templates. Think about Zipf's law. Across literally all languages, the most used words are always the shortest. Why? The principle of least effort. Forms that cost the least amount of energy to produce are the ones that survive. This is exactly why dog trainers worldwide converge on German commands like sitz or komm. They are short, perceptually punchy, and physically economical. Similarly, Jakobson's universals show absolute rules across all languages that are completely rooted in the physical limits of our human vocal anatomy and acoustics. Deep physical constraint. No transcendent origin required.
Section 4. The Cognitive Inflation Problem. This brings us to a major philosophical danger.
If we aren't careful, we fall into what Preschel calls cognitive inflation. This is when we start blurring the stark line between a basic chemical reaction, like a primitive biological signal, where an amoeba simply recoils from a toxin, and true cognitive problem-solving, which actually involves having goals, memory, exploring, and learning. When a simple biological adaptation gets labeled as intelligence or learning, we end up importing a massive amount of assumptions that the hard evidence just doesn't support.
In Levin's framework, the vocabulary often outruns the evidence. The whole concept scales up until even an amoeba, or ultimately just inorganic matter, is granted mental attributes like exploring mind space. Preschel warns that if every single adaptive physical response is seen as evidence of cognition, well, then the word cognition kind of ceases to mean anything, right? Because it excludes nothing. It totally loses its scientific discriminatory power.
Section 5. A grounded physical alternative. Let's look at a much more disciplined approach.
30 million volts. I want you to just let that sink in for a second. That staggering number represents the electric field per meter, sustained continuously in every single mitochondrion, in every respiring cell in your body. It is a completely mind-bending amount of localized energy.
Let's dive into what this actually is. This is the proton-motive force. At the inner mitochondrial membrane, electrons are stripped from food, pass through proteins, and protons are pumped across a barrier that is only 5 nanometers thick. This creates a massive electrochemical gradient. Biologist Nick Lane hypothesizes that this fluctuating electrical state, which literally crashes the moment a cell is starved or poisoned, is the actual physical substrate for the most primitive kind of feeling. It's a 2-billion-year-old biological "I'm okay" or "I'm not okay" signal. It isn't a complex thought, it isn't problem-solving, and it definitely isn't exploring a Platonic mind space. It is simply the raw, physical registration of metabolic status.
Section 6. Occam's razor in science. The foundational rules of how we investigate reality.
These two directions of reasoning sit in stark contrast to one another. Nick Lane gives us a disciplined, minimal, measurable claim. He identifies a specific physical substrate, that proton-motive force, and makes the minimal claim that it creates a simple, binary "I'm okay, not okay" signal. It's testable, it's falsifiable, and it's parsimonious. Michael Levin, on the other hand, starts with striking phenomena like xenobots or fractals and moves to an unbounded cognitive vocabulary, suggesting things learn, explore, and ingress from a totally non-physical mind space. One generates testable predictions based on physical evidence, the other relocates the mystery to a realm we simply cannot measure.
This quote from the paper perfectly grounds us back in physical reality. Bees do not download blueprints. They deposit wax, apply heat, and let physics do the geometry. It reminds us that physical law alone is entirely enough to produce the extraordinary. We don't need to diminish the majesty of the honeycomb or the complexity of the amoeba by saying it's just physics. Rather, we should be absolutely awestruck by how physical processes, operating under strict constraints, can interact to build the incredibly diverse and complex natural world we see all around us.
I'm going to leave you with a provocative thought about Occam's razor, the principle that the simplest explanation is usually the right one. Are we looking to external, non-physical realms for answers to biology's greatest mysteries, or should we be looking deeper at the physics we can measure, test, and actually observe? Science isn't about filling the gaps in our knowledge with mysterious new categories. It's about pulling back the layers of the extraordinary physical reality right in front of us. Thank you so much for diving into this explainer with me today. Keep asking those big questions, and definitely keep looking closely at the world around you.